Good evening and welcome to another edition of the MBTV Rui Cunha Foundation Debates series. It is a very special one, as each one of these installments that we've been holding over the past 5 years. I'd like to welcome you all here at Rui Cunha Foundation, those of you following us live on Facebook. I'd like to thank you for joining us. Thank you. I would like to also thank Rui Cunha Foundation, of course, for this long-established and strong partnership. And for this particular roundtable, we also enjoy the support from the Securities and Funds Industry Association of Macau, SFA. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you. And why are we here today? We're talking about, in this particular roundtable, about something that is actually gaining traction, momentum, is actually the cover story of the edition of the October edition of Macau Business Magazine, as well as Business Intelligence Magazine. This series is jointly held by Macau Business Magazine and Rui Cunha Foundation, and we'll be talking about something, as I was saying, really interesting, exciting for the industry, which is Macau's new investment funds law, which was approved earlier this year in July and will come into effect on the 1st of January 2026. So we'll be talking about opportunities, challenges, prospects, what lies ahead, and we are fortunate for having a panel of distinguished and diverse guest speakers. I will introduce each one of them. Amy Ho, she's Senior Officer, Banking Supervision Department at the Monetary Authority of Macau. Thank you very much and welcome, Amy. Thank you. Thank you. Bernardo Alves, Chairman and Chief Investment Officer, A&P Investment Fund Management Company Limited. Calvin Choi, Co-Managing Partner at Lacto and President of the Board of Directors of the Macau Financial Law Association. Nuno Sardinha da Mata, Senior Partner at CNC Lawyers. Rui Proença, partner at MDME. And last but not least, hailing from Hong Kong, flying, not flying. You took the bridge, perhaps, or the ferry. You may share that with us. Gavin Kwok, Head of Prime Brokerage Origination Hong Kong at Maybank Investment Banking Group. Thank you. So thank you very much. Ladies first, or shall I say regulator first. Thank you very much. Let me tell you that, of course, it is our honor and really privilege, I would say, for having each one of you here. I'd like to thank, of course, the Office of the Secretary for Economy and Finance and the Monetary Authority of Macau for kindly joining us for this important discussion. And my first question, Amy, is as simple as follows. What was the rationale behind moving forward in 2025 with a comprehensive upgrade and overhaul of Macau's 1999 investment funds law?
Okay. So first of all, I would like to also thank Jose, Macau Business, for inviting us, and also Rui Cunha Foundation for hosting us today, so the government have the opportunity to share with all of you and the other panelists with regard to the government's direction and the efforts that we have been made in developing the financial sector. So back to your question as to the rationale of why we make this big move in making such a comprehensive upgrade of the investment funds law, which is already like 26 years old. As all of you know, the Macau government is putting a lot of effort in making economic diversification. So in our financial sector, we are also doing our part of diversification. So in the recent years, we have put a lot of effort in developing modern finance. Actually, in high-level government documents, including the policy address and the Macau Development Plan for Appropriate Economic Diversification, it states very clearly that we have to improve and enhance the soft and hard infrastructure for developing modern finance. And actually, modern finance, we have several scopes. One important scope is the developed bond market. And another important scope of modern finance is that we have to develop wealth management. And if we say wealth management, we always refer to developing investment fund. So against all this background, we think it's the right timing to have a big revamp of the law, which is already like 26 years old. And in reformulating this law, actually, we have done very comprehensive industry consultation, not only for the local industry, but also we also take into account the valuable experience and the feedback from the well-established investment fund companies in Hangqin, the in-depth cooperation zone, because there are actually a lot of well-established fund management companies there. So besides this, we also study and review the regulatory regime from nearby jurisdictions, including Hong Kong and Singapore, because they have a more matured investment fund market. And also, we have also taken into consideration a lot of suggestions given to us by the advisory group from the Legislative Assembly in Macau. So with all these valuable experience and feedbacks and comments, then we have come up to this new investment funds law, which, as mentioned by Jose, is just passed in July this year and will be effective next year. And with this new law, we want to meet at least four main objectives. The first is we want to align it with international regulatory regime, international best practice, because we want to attract more foreign investors and foreign financial institutions to take part in developing this sector. And then another objective is we want to enhance investor protection, because this is very important, because investment fund is a financial product, and investor confidence in our market is a key. And the third is because of the law is quite a aged law, then we want to remove some obstacles that will obstruct the development and the operation of investment funds. And then actually the final but not least is we have actually put a lot of new elements in the law to optimize the development environment. So we hope that this new law with these new elements and this objective, we hope that it can really help to develop this sector. And of course, the participation from the industry is very important to make it a success. So that's the rationale behind.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Amy. We have the foundations laid for us to have an understanding of why and why now in the broader framework of several steps that have been taken by the SAR government to modernize, to push forward with an upgrade of the city's financial services industry. And I would like to bring Bernardo into the conversation now. From regulator to operator, Bernardo, you are already operating under the soon-to-be replaced legal framework, which dates back to 1999. You were still quite young, but you've seen all these. You're still very. You were just a baby back then. Anyway, my point is, tell us about the transition of an operator that is already, fully invested for several years under the current framework, and your expectations for the transition to the upgraded legal regime.
Firstly, I extend my thanks as well to the organization today and the opportunity to share our experiences in the fund management industry and 8399 and our big headaches with MCM as well. But it's all part of progress. Yeah. I do share the opinion that the investment fund law did require an upgrade. From 1999, the markets have exponentially become more complex. There's more types of investment products that are and are available and have to be promoted carefully as well because of the regulatory risk and the investment protection. But in my opinion, the 8399, maybe I don't share so much the same idea as Amy, but the idea of 8399 that it's an old law, it's a law that worked. Okay, we applied through it. We started, the operations in 2021 when we first approached the MCM regarding this license. But in fact, the law itself was written in 1990, in the tail end of the handover. By Vitor Pessoa, secretary, maybe some of you remember.
And Secretary for Economy.
Yeah, Secretary of Economy. The idea was to leave a framework that could have been worked in the future. As the handover happened, of course, perhaps all these people perhaps left Macau as well. So there was a problem of the continuation of how do we now apply the law. And this regulatory gap is perhaps one of the key reasons also that not because the investment fund law was obsolete or it was not working, but also, well, how do we interpret the law? And interpretation was a key problem that we've had as operators in the market, not only from how do we approach AMCM and try to get this license, and the process itself was a learning curve for both parties, but the process of finding funds and creating funds was also a challenge for the infrastructure in the market that didn't exist. So that was the complication. And the difficulty here was not that the law itself, as I said, was obsolete itself. The law is based on the 1985 UCITS, European Union law. It worked, but it very quickly became apparent that the interpretation was the hard part. Not only by how do we open a bank account, who is a distributor, what is a custodian, what does a custodian do, but what is a depository, right? There was all these definitions that perhaps at the time would have been easy to translate and say, hey, this was the idea behind it, the rationale behind it. And as time went by, as the new generation came by, perhaps it was difficult to do so. Another of the comments was that this was a public fund law. I mean, me and Ricardo and Paulo were here. We discussed the law and we thought about, is this also applicable to private funds? And quickly we also realized, okay, the private fund is not really regulated by the 8399, the old law. So that was also understanding that, okay, this law does need to improve a little bit. And when I was approached by MCM that there was going to be a new investment fund law, of course, I welcomed. I was the only player in the market, and I said, okay, there's more opportunities now to develop this and to create different type of wrappers. Wrappers we call like different fund structures. And the more fund structures, the more ability that we have to allocate capital. I think this fund law was a big step forward. I think it was an ambitious law. I think Amy agrees with me. Because I think throughout the world, it was the first law. It's the first law that actually does merge two types of structures, the private and the public together. If you go and check European Union and the EU law, they do separate, the unit funds or the public funds, the retail funds with the AIF-MD. There was two ways when MCM approached me, because I don't want to talk too much about my business, but I will do so if you follow up. But when I was approached to see this law from an operator angle, I think that's perhaps the interesting part as well, there was an idea of how do we build this law, how do we give comments on this. And there's really two ways to do it. And when I studied as well, we realized that for you to have an investment law, there's two ways to do it. There's the exemption mechanism. Basically, you have the existing law and you say, hey, these 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 do not work, okay? Or you do create a new regime, okay? And this is what, many other jurisdictions have done. So Hong Kong as well, Singapore as well. Mainland China just came with a private fund law in 2023. So it was weird to see all of a sudden this law being together, and the first draft that we saw the law was an ambitious one as well, and then we gave comments, and it was using the exemption rule, and this is the history behind it. I don't know if you remember, private funds are exempted from articles 5, 6, 7, etc. And then when I was trying to do it, it was about 50, and I said, oh my God, where's the Panadol? Couldn't have it. The new law, I think it's well drafted. I think it's perhaps not only ambitious in various angles that we'll probably discuss a little bit later. Operationally, it's yet to be tested. We try to see, and as we learn with the regulator approving our fund, I think they also need the learning curve They also need perhaps more training as well. How do you approve funds? What is the risks? It's not only on our side, because as a capital allocation side, the more funds we have, the better it is. But the relationship with the regulator is very important, and the relationship with the distributor is very important.
So we can say the more funds, the more fun. I mean, for the industry, right?
For MCM, no, but for me, yes.
We're going to talk about the structure of funds and the fact that through this law we have contractual funds, joint stock, limited partnerships, umbrella, master, feeder funds, and all of that. I don't know if Calvin, you want to delve into it, or if you want to have a first take, because Calvin, in addition to being a legal expert and a lawyer, you're also conducting scholarly research on this matter. What's your take?
Yes, that's true. I'll share a little bit with everyone. Like, actually, I read with great interest of all the documents that are available on AMP funds, and also I have read like in depth on all the legislation available and searchable from EU to China, all on an investment fund. Basically, like the law that we had from 1999, that one was actually taken from two parts. That one include like the securities fund and also the mortgage fund, like the real estate fund. And then actually those two type of funds were regulated in separate in Portugal before. I think it was in the years of 80s. And then if you trace that back to the 80s, then you can go to, and then you can trace it back to, you can trace the origin of the Portuguese law to the European UCIT directives. So therefore, we can like reach the conclusion that what we had in 1999, it was actually a German-style contractual public fund law, and it wasn't anything else. So it didn't include like private fund nor anything. And then what we have right now, actually, what we have right now, well, we still haven't have it because like well, we have it, but it's still not in effect until 1st of January. What we will have in the future is actually quite interesting and quite diverse. Because first, what we have is we have passed the trust law in 2022. And then that's the question that China had in the past. Because like when China was legislating on investment fund law, what they had before is first, they had the trust law, and then later they legislate on investment fund law. And then how China like not mitigate, but how China glue them together is to place trust law as the underlying law or as the subsidiary law for the investment fund law. And that's what happens in China. And then in Macau, we didn't have this problem in 1999 because we didn't have trust law. Yeah. And then nor did European, nor trust was a common like legal concept in Europe. So we didn't have that problem. But now, I mean not now, but like in 2025, when we were legislating on the new law, then we had that problem. Because like in 2022, we passed the trust law, and now we need to think about the relationship between investment fund and trust law. And actually, I was thinking like, would AMCM have some difficulties in doing that? But turns out, if you look into the new law, they only mention trust once. And then, and where it was mentioned in the area of like, if you set up the fund by contractual relationship, then you can choose either by regulations or by a trust contract. And then also, it actually mentioned in one more additional time is that between the relationship, for the relationship between the fund manager and the custodian, you can take the choice, you can pick one or the other. One is that you can use a contractual terms by like mandating them to give them the money, or you can use the trust deed to pass the money to them. So that's that's like the gluing of the two law together in Macau law right now. So I think that was done like nicely, like in really practical terms, but still I expect that we will see more academic paper written on this, because like China didn't have this, China didn't use this style. This would be like the third way. And then so that would be on the part of the law. And then secondly, I would go into a little bit like in other area is that the new law, when it was like being discussed, and AMCM and also market player is thinking about like what was needed to be done more. Actually, the old law has some difficulties. For example, like real estate fund. If you look into the 1999 one, actually the area for investment if you pick the choice of real estate fund, then you can only invest in local Macau real estate. And actually, that's a big bummer for everyone. So I think now the new law actually, what the regulator has done and what has the market players has done is that like regulator has listened to the market players, and the market players has reflected like what they have encountered as difficulties. And now we see what we see right now. The new law is most of the difficulties. I would say most of the difficulties have been removed, and now this is the new landscape for welcoming fund manager coming to Macau. And I don't know eventually if there will be more custodian coming to Macau, but I think what the market or the world is looking at this moment are the two funds that are planned to be like more details on the two fund of the government will be released. I think like next year or early next year regarding the industry fund and also the technology transformation guiding fund. Those two will be two main attractions for the world to see.
I would say thank you, thank you, Calvin, and I would say we look forward to learning more about that as early as next month in the policy address that Chief Executive Samofai will be delivering in about 1 month. So, and actually, we have already been taking note of some hints of what will be coming up. Thank you, Calvin. Nuno, you are very familiar, of course, with the previous legal regime and where we were in terms of the city's financial services. How do you see this comprehensive overhaul? What's your take on how to transition from legislation to implementation? And then later on, we're going to talk about market, of course.
Well, thank you for the invitation, first of all. And to answer that question, how long do we have?
In a nutshell, I guess like 3-4 minutes. Yes.
Because it's a very
Yeah, I
long.
know, it's a pretty-
It's a very long. I was just before we begin this talking with some people here, and I was saying, of course, I think the opinion of everybody here, probably Rui thinks also, although he didn't talk yet, is that this is a very big step in terms of advancement, especially because although we had legislation before, either because the legislation was not adapted to the market or because of the interpretation, as Bernard was saying, it was very difficult to, and Bernard probably, he told already that he felt that when incorporating and getting the license for the fund. So this is a big step because it's a modern law. It places Macau on the most modern framework, legal framework for this kind of financial products. But I was saying that this is just the first step. Okay, it's a very important first step, but I think the road away has a lot of challenges, and those challenges are the ones that will see whether this is going to be a success or not, because. First of all the people involved on the market, it's not only the government that applies the law. All of us that work on this field have to apply the law, have to interpret it, and have to use it the best way to make a development of the market that is according with the main goals of this change, the diversification and the increase of the financial market in a way that the Macau economy will be more and more less dependent on gaming and more dependent on other kinds of activities. I will say just to begin with in the conversation, to not take much time on this, that one of the points that I think is very important is AMCM next job that is regulating this law. There are a lot of regulations that are needed to this law, and that is very important. I see I'm very happy that this was made in cooperation with the market players existing on the market, because they are the ones that suffer every day the problems that they suffer with the law. So I think that's one of the big steps that is somehow changing our regulator in someone that is there, of course, to do make everybody behave the way they should, but also someone that cooperates in order to help the market players to change and the challenges that they feel every day. Another point, and I'm just finishing with this one. I have more, but I'm just finishing with this one because I know you have the time. That is the human part of this.
Yes.
We don't have enough qualified people to expand the market as we probably all wish. So I think that part has to be addressed, either with allowing people qualified to come for the first time, using their know-how to form local people to work on the market, and then also try to educate people here in order for them to occupy those roles. So I think these two challenges are already a lot of things to think about.
Thank you, Nuno. And actually, talent is obviously of paramount importance. Rui, I don't know if you want to elaborate also on the talented elephant or the talent elephant in the room, which has been brought into the center stage. On top of that, or at the same time, in your op-ed published in this month's edition of Macau Business Magazine, you mentioned, if implemented effectively, the fund regime could become a cornerstone of the much-touted economic diversification. Let's talk about implementation. Let's talk about moving from legislation to implementation to a market. How to, bring about an ecosystem in a real market.
Thank you very much, José Carlos. Nuno, when I was passing the mic, the word was challenge, and then you just throw me another challenge, how to create a fun market.
Yes.
Well, let me start by congratulating the government and the assembly and the private sector that contributed to this legislation. I think it was, for the fact that they prioritized this topic, which is very relevant, and I think for what I believe it's an excellent piece of legislation. I think as trying to sum up the opinions that were given now, it's quite a comprehensive legislation, but at the same time flexible in that it gives investors and fund promoters a wide array of choices when structuring their funds. I believe it's a legislation that innovates. It introduces new legal concepts to Macau, even new subtypes of companies that we didn't have before, but at the same time is very clear. And very importantly, as Amy mentioned, it brings Macau to the level of international standards and expectations of investors. And I say that in the sense that it introduces types of funds and the fund structures that investors use worldwide, and therefore are knowledgeable on how they operate and would feel more comfortable in using them. Now, I think as the conclusion that we arrive is, for as much as we would like it to be, a law does not create the market by itself. I think it's people like Bernardo that had the courage and the foresight to create the first Macau domiciled fund, and of Gavin that supported with custodian services and of the regulator that bring them about and tell them the direction. So I think the question is, how do we bring more of these people and of these companies to Macau, and how do we make that a pathway for the economic diversification, as you are mentioning. I believe there are two approaches here we could take. One is to attract foreign capital, how to make investors look at Macau as a possibility to domicile their funds and to manage their funds from. I believe Macau can do it, but it is not easy. And when I say it's not easy, it's because there's a fierce competition. There's jurisdictions that are very well reputed, very well established as hubs for fund domiciliation. You know, from Cayman, that is known globally and dominates the PE side of the market, to Luxembourg in the European Union, to more close to us, Singapore and Hong Kong. So these are very established and dynamic markets. So I think the question here is, how do we position ourselves in this global landscape to attract these investors? Do we compete with these jurisdictions head to head? Or do we try to understand where the gaps are, where what things they cannot do or are more restricted, that Macau will be able to fill that gap and provide an alternative for those investors and those fund managers to come and establish themselves here. So I think there's a number of things that we need to happen for that possibility to become a reality. But this is one of the avenues to attract foreign capital. I think the other avenue is to unlock local capital. And I think, as Calvin was mentioning, there's a big expectation on how the government will make use of this framework to be able to launch its own funds, perhaps with them being attractive enough to be able to have private co-investors. And how that could be a driver for economic diversification. I think we've seen examples all around the world of sovereign funds or sovereign-like funds, let's say, as catalysts for economic diversification. And I do believe that is a possibility that we have here and that we should make the most of. And perhaps this is the missing piece of the puzzle to achieve that economic diversification goal, is to create the means to an effective capital deployment, and to have that capital be managed privately by people that know how to do it and are dedicated to do that, and that have the global experience and the network to do that. If that could be a starting point, perhaps that could then bring about the development of the whole ecosystem. That would bring about fund managers, custodians, the development of legal services and accounting that could be prepared to then be able to service private investors on perhaps a second step, where we will then be looking at competing to sum the piece of the pie globally.
Thank you, Rui. And Gavin, well, you got a vantage point from a highly developed financial world-class hub. How do you see, Rui was mentioning, you know, we have to find our niche, our competitive edge. What's your take on what may lie ahead, and also yourself? You are quite familiar with what's been taking shape here. And do you anticipate that you will be more and more involved and busier with Macau after this new law?
Sure. So to take a step back,
Of course.
yeah, taking a step back, Hong Kong has more funds than the rest of Asia combined, right? That's still true as of today. However, most of the funds are domiciled in Cayman, BVI, wherever it is. Does that really mean the money is in Hong Kong or in Greater China? Debatable, right? But it does boost the ecosystem, right? Whether people are renting, opening company, even the restaurants need office space, right? So it does, of course, that's why Hong Kong is a financial hub. Until 7 years ago, Singapore decided to start a fund structure called VCC that is locally domiciled in Singapore. Then Hong Kong, kind of as always, followed footsteps, copy or did a little bit of tweak, did something called OFC, which is a Hong Kong domicile fund structure that started 3-4 years ago. So from an outside perspective, when I first heard about this, about a year ago or so, people naturally think, oh, now there's a third one that is locally domiciled with very similar DNA in Macau, right? The good thing is, all the mistakes that were made, you already know what the mistakes were, right? From a regulator perspective, from a legal perspective, from a stringent perspective, and all the good parts is already there. That's a natural advantage already because there's precedent cases, right? And to give some numbers to it, right? In VCC, so the Singapore domicile fund, there's maybe about 700 right now, but OFC only have been around for 3.5 years. There's over 1,000 already, right? So that shows the propensity and the velocity that like fund managers, whether from offshore, from onshore China, or from local, they're very willing to try these new fund structure out, right? Of course, a lot of it is because of potential investors within the local jurisdiction, or just ability to tap into a new market. So I see Macau just having this natural advantage already, and this is where the key part is going to be important, is whether the fund structure is going to be more flexible. And I've seen the MDMD published, and it was quite impressive because I've seen DNA from different jurisdictions, right? I've seen umbrella fund, which is very similar to what OFC is. I've seen Cayman structure fund, where it's very similar to master feeder. So all these combined right now, I think, is already a natural advantage. And props to the regulator for actually creating this, and it's quite exciting, and it's starting to buzz in Hong Kong as well.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Back to the regulator, Amy. We were mentioning here. Well, this is just the beginning of. There's a lot on your plate. I mean, on the plate of the regulators, certainly, when it comes to the next steps. Say a number of guidelines, and also this new task in terms of supervision. What would be coming next in this respect?
Coming next, okay, so I think there will be short-term coming next and then medium-term coming next.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah. So short-term coming next will be, we have to prepare a lot of guidelines to supplement the execution of the law, because it's just like 2 months left. So this one, and also a lot of propaganda activities, because just the law itself wouldn't work. So we need private sector and financial institutions, investors to participate. So we have to do a lot of propaganda activities to let all people know. So this event is one of those. And also, we are also studying some tax incentives. Yes, because this is a very important part. So actually, every government, if you want to facilitate and promote, you want to develop a particular area, then this is a very important part that we have to make. And that and then for the tax part, of course we are discussing with the tax department. So that will be that is the short-term next step. And then for a medium or longer term next step would be, as Nunu has just mentioned, a talent attraction.
Yes.
That one is a long-term thing. I think it's not only for investment fund. Actually, it's for the whole sector, because it's not only for funds. We also have bonds and then like that. But actually, if we focus on funds, we have done something on like talent attraction, or to fill the technical gap. I would like to say, if you look at the new law, we have do something like we have open up the custodian. Before, it's we only accept local custodians. Now we also accept overseas custodian. And then investment fund managers, they can now appoint external investment manager, like some kind of external investment advisor, which can also be overseas financial institutions. These are new elements. Why do we do that? Because we think that, especially for the external investment manager, is we believe that attracting those like overseas well-established, high-quality fund managers to be the outsourcee of these local investment fund manager, they can, at least in the initial stage, they can fill up this technical gap at the moment. And then they can bring experience that they have. They can inject some international perspective into the local fund management industry, which is very important because what we're saying, we want to attract international investors. We want to attract those well-established international financial institutions to participate. And of course, in the long term, we hope that these overseas financial institutions can help us build our own local workforce. With this experience that when they cooperate, of course, they will learn something from these overseas financial institutions, and then we can build up our own local workforce and then make it more diversified, and then we can grow our own local workforce in this field. So I think that's why we open up this overseas custodian and overseas investment advisor with a view of this to build our local workforce and to make our local like financial talent more diversified. This is part of the long next step. Yeah, I think yeah, mostly.
Thank you, Amy. Bernardo, your 2 cents on the issue of talent and on your wish list, so to say, for the next steps. Once the law comes into effect, and I'm aware that ANP has ambitious plans for the coming year.
Without telling too many secrets.
Yes.
Yes, I think talent is a problem. And just to retrace back, the objective of this company was to have Jige and Gun Jige Qin, our own people, to manage our own money.
Yeah, this is really important, if I may jump in very quickly, which is you mentioned in an interview with our publications that Pataka, our currency, as an investment currency and tool, is something that is somehow part of the DNA of what you are contributing to, right?
Yeah, I think as a family with roots in Macau for many years, I think I see that the Pataka does need to have a voice. It's one of the voices of the Greater Bay Area. It's one of the currencies of China, together with Hong Kong, renminbi. I think the MOP's voice is never going to be the same as the Hong Kong dollar. We have to be realistic about this. The whole history of the MOP and why it's not an investment currency can be for another interview with you.
Yes.
But the historical precedent case that happened in the Hong Kong dollar becoming the main investment currency is de facto, the real issue here. When we launched the money market fund, just as a small introduction, was not because I wanted it. The money market fund is the most basic investment fund in the risk premium curve of financial markets. We did so because, firstly, the regulator also required a fund that was easy to approve. So you had to have market sense, not because because it was new, and also for the general population. The financial literacy is something that is important to speak about, about the general population, about the effects that he had with investments before. So there was a whole process of it, and sometimes I remind people like you, they come to me and say, Macau, you should do this, and MCM comes to me, this is great. ANP was an exceptional case, not exceptional because it was great, but because I was the judge, the jury, and the executioner. I knew how to manage money, I knew how to look at laws, and I had a big team with me. It was not easy to achieve what we have achieved, but other companies that will come to the market will feel that the path is not as easy as it seems. So talent is one issue, but if I wasn't a fund manager myself, if I didn't know how to allocate capital, this endeavor would never have happened as well. So there's a lot of factors here, apart from just the talent issue. It's also the talent issue of the custodian or the depository, as we say. It's difficult to attract firms without the first precedent case. So ANP's role also was this idea for Macau, is that we show that it's possible to do. Otherwise, there would have been funds 26 years ago. And there's funds in Macau. There's more than 1,000 funds approved by MCM. But that was the first local one. So that's the idea. I hope that foreign firms do come to Macau, but I also do hope that our own people will also be able to do the second ANP and the third ANP, because that's the objective, is for our grown talent to be able to say, okay, this is a possible avenue for the future. So I do share the concerns with the talent, but I think that the overall picture is still one of many pieces that we don't have the time to discuss today.
Sure. And those funds base here also to be able to go across the border, right? This will be another issue. We'll be talking in a while about not only Hangshin, but the wider Greater Bay Area, the Wealth Management Connect. Calvin, could we anticipate a number of funds knocking on our door? They're already knocking.
Well, I think so. I think Nunu, Hui, I think all of us can agree. Or also from the perspective of regulator, I think you guys must have received tremendous inquiries on how do we set up a fund man in Macau and how do we go forward and set up a fund. And actually, we have received this kind of inquiries. I think in the past 2 weeks, past 2 months was crazy. And then even today, from 9 o'clock to now, I think I have been answering these questions to many clients. And then so what I see is this new law actually what it differs from other financial legislation is that it actually brings in financial and economic effect even before even it comes into effect. What I'm saying is it's already benefiting the professional service world. And then what I'm seeing coming next is that the funds when they consider of coming to Macau. So that was the first part, and then the second part is Gavin said, how do we compete with other jurisdiction, and also what Hui has said, because the other jurisdiction, their structure are well established, well tested, and also in terms of financial incentive, I think they go a little bit overboard. It's they are not saying that how much tax that they're gonna reduce, but it's how zero tax they're gonna maintain. I mean, that's racing to the ground. I mean, and I think Macau, from the past experience of having get named by OECD, I think we will have some refrain from doing too overboard. So right now in Macau, it's yes, we have this new legal landscape. By legal terms, the difficulties and obstacles that we had experienced in the past have been removed. But now, that's still not enough. We need to compete on the global scale, and we need to attract different fund managers come to Macau and set up their fund in Macau, and that's the difficult part. And how can we achieve that? Well, I think either Macau can propose and can offer to the world something that is unique, that you can only buy in Macau, which is something that I think in the past administration have already discussed in terms of the bonds. That could be one. And then another thing that we can think of is there any special sectors or products or service that is unique in Macau, so that the fund man, they would need to choose to come to Macau. And that's somehow that there's some directions telling them that after setting up the fund man in Macau, you should also consider using Macau law as the applicable law for the fund structure. Because otherwise, what from the legal sectors we can see is that the players can be in Macau, but then the fund structure can be overseas. And then, do we want that as well? Well, coming back to reality, I have to give some more credits to the regulator, is because actually what I see from the new legislation is, to me, figuratively, it's like connecting to the internet. Why I said that is because one, we have already they put in a new mechanism for redomiciliation. So Macau is already with the effective with this law coming into effect, we can foresee that maybe some fund overseas, they would choose to relocate to Macau and possibly enjoy the tax benefit of exiting in Macau. That's one thing. So we are connected to the world by that way. And secondly, we are also connected to the world is that maybe the fund man in Macau can use either Macau law and also English and whatever law that is pleased to international investor. And that wasn't forbidden by the law. That's what I'm going to share. So in terms of connecting the dots and possibly more funds coming to Macau, that's what we have.
Thank you, Calvin. Nuno, how optimistic are you in terms of what may lie ahead? And talking about, when we talk about, it's a buzzword like diversification, but I guess in many people's mind and eyes, we would be talking about adding value. We'll be talking about jobs, of course, highly skilled jobs for our local highly skilled youth, and also for bringing top-notch professionals from abroad. How do you see this taking shape?
Well, on one side, I'm happy that everybody is knocking at the door, but that is a little scaring also, because I think we're not prepared to have an invasion of funds right now, because you don't have the infrastructures for that. But of course, infrastructures will probably shape up and
Yes.
come afterwards. But it's
Going to be learning by doing,
yeah,
certainly.
yeah. In what relates to the I think we have to do a little of everything, because apart from attracting talent from foreign talent, that, in my opinion, I always defended this. We should take opportunity of the foreign talent that we attract, also use them to educate, to train local talent. The other thing is by doing just cooperation agreements with universities. We have various universities in Macau that can capacitate local people for these areas. So I think that should be incentivized by the government. In terms of development of the local market and the use of this law to Macau, I don't see. Although I think our best position, how we best should position ourselves, is not as a competitor to the existing markets, but more as a cooperation market. For instance, for niche markets that working together with Hong Kong, we could have, for instance, ESG funds, green funds, things that can be attractive for investors and market players to come to Macau. I think we should work also and take advantages of the natural situation, characteristics of Macau. One of the things that we have is our connection with the Portuguese-speaking countries. We have not talked about that yet here, but I think it's also very good opportunities there to attract investments, to attract money from those countries and jurisdictions, because they have it and they want to apply it on funds that are here in Macau. So I think that is also something that we could explore.
Thank you, Nuno. Rui, what needs to happen for Macau to attract and to domicile funds here? You mentioned incentives or measures or hinted at that. What could make the trick?
Well, I think both Emmy and Calvin touched a little bit on the issue of tax, and I know Calvin is concerned of us going overboard, but I think in this particular topic we should go all in, frankly. I think if we look at the success of fund hubs around the world, at its core, it's the principle of tax neutrality. And I'm going to try to explain it, but if there's an expert in the room, do please jump in. It's essentially a principle whereby the fund vehicle is not taxed. It's not taxed on its income, and its distributions to investors are also not taxed. So the taxable subjects in those places are the investors themselves, and they're taxed according to the laws of their residence, wherever they are and whatever they are. We see that in the Cayman Island. It's a pure pass-through tax-neutral jurisdiction, and hence the success. I think in Hong Kong and Singapore, funds need to qualify. There's a particular schemes. If they meet certain criteria that is defined by the government and the regulator according to their own economic policies, they will also be exempted. And I think we should follow that same principle. For that, we would need a specific tax legal framework if we're going to inject some certainty on the long run in the market. But we could do that annually in the budget law, and we have the opportunity to do it in the upcoming budget law. And I do think that that's really important. If we don't do that, we're not competing on a level playing field with those jurisdictions. And I do think that the objective here is not to generate another source of tax revenue on the short term. Luckily, we don't need that. Eventually, if the industry develops, matures, and becomes successful, yes, it has to contribute like the rest of us. But I think the objective in this at this stage would be to attract, to localize, and to generate a new stream of economic activity. And so I do think we should go all in this. In addition to the taxation of funds, and I think you could speak a bit more about this. There's an array of incentives that Hong Kong has, for example. We don't need to follow all of those, but we should look into those and see and learn from the experience there. I think there's incentives for fund managers. In that tax rates can be reduced and carried interest, so the variable component of the remuneration of fund managers could be exempted in some circumstances. And there's hard incentives of subsidizing, I think it's up to 70% of the costs with the fund formation and the fund management inception with service providers such as ourselves, that the government subsidizes. I know you have a different take on how this the implementation of this could be tricky, but I think from a principle standpoint, I think that this is the direction we should be heading to.
Thank you. Gavin, your take? Following on, hooking up with what Rui was saying.
So the Singapore government a few years ago, they came up with this grant scheme, right, of subsidizing the setup costs of up to about 50% or $100,000 Singapore dollars, which is about 600K Hong Kong dollars. Hong Kong, as of 3 years ago, same thing. It was subsidizing $500,000 or so per fund setup. What ended up happening is a lot of fund managers are rushing and opening a fund, and that 500K basically all went to legal fees, right? To draft up all the documentation and everything. So, and the downfall of that is a lot of people rush to start a fund without the investors in place. So what ended up happening is a lot of the funds are empty even up to now, right? So I think like echoing the other panelists, it went too overboard. Money is not always the best incentive, right? A lot of it is regulatory, a lot of it is structural. And even in Singapore, there's incentive where, to echo the talent question, right? For example, one of my biggest clients, there are these really famous Malaysian fund managers that runs an insurance company fund. They moved to Singapore with their family to start VCC, right? So there is some sort of immigration like advantage when it comes to that as well. That is another way of attracting foreign talent as well, right? So my point being is, I think Macau can definitely learn from what didn't work. So just like plainly throwing money into fund manager to start a fund, it doesn't actually move a needle. Of course, it helps, right? But that is something that can be improved upon. Yeah.
Thank you, Gavin. And there's still plenty on our agenda, but at this stage, I would like to encourage our esteemed audience to jump in, to come up with some questions. Ben, please go ahead. Yes, your question. Thank you, Ben Lee. Questions or remarks? You're encouraged to join the conversation by by adding some remarks and, of course, questions for the panel. Ben.
My name is Ben Lee. I would like to echo Nuno's question, and that is just listening to the panel. We've got this new law being framed. It's going to be launched very soon, and as Emmy said, they're now in the propaganda or promotion phase. The question is, are we premature in launching the law, promoting it, when the basic infrastructural question is not in place, i.e. the talent? So we may get this rush of inquiries come in and for people to set up offices and then find we can't get our people in Macau. We can't get our principals in Macau. Now, I have a personal anecdote where the principal who's based in Hong Kong came in, they set up operations in Macau, they had staff in Macau, and one day they were raided by immigration officials because one local staff complained about people coming in from Hong Kong to manage the office. So are we going to see the same situation whereby, we get a rush and then all these new investors discovered, oh, we have a problem. And then what you're going to do is you're going to try and fix the problem, but by then it may be too late. They're not going to come back. You're never going to get a second bite of cherry. So is AMCM in the process of negotiating with the other departments, and we all know which department is responsible for this, to try and get a process in place before you actually launch the law?
Thank you, Ben. So it's not only a matter of division of labor, but something else. Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks for your question. That's a good one. Actually, we, as I've just said, it's a reformulation of the law. It's not a new law. It's been there for a long time, and then actually financial institutions are not unfamiliar with investment funds, but it's only that they usually do like distributor of foreign funds. And actually in the process of reformulating this law, we have made a very comprehensive industry consultation too. And then actually if you have to have the decision to move forward in a specific field, you really have to make that one big move. Otherwise, you never have the chance to develop it. So I think we really go hand in hand with the industry. So we make this big move, and then actually, of course, we have our own supervisory framework. So we have to go through stringent approval process before we approve the first one investment fund management company. And then if you ask Bernardo, it's not easy, right? and then every public fund, we have to approve it. We have to approve it, and then we have to map it with the law. And then, of course, our law, we also we have also study and analyze other jurisdiction, how they are going. And then, of course, it's a lot of uncertainties, of course, but we as regulators, we are always on a prudent, and then we approach, and then I think communication with the industry is the key. Yes, so because now we start from a low risk investment funds, like money market fund, which is a low risk, and then we start from there. We start from the low risk thing, and then we see what's going on, and then we always communicate with the investment fund company to see if you have any risk or what's the problem of that, and then we grow hand in hand. So yeah, that is our decision to see how, if you don't make that move, then you're never going to develop anything. So yeah, and then we try to make this move as prudent as possible, but of course we also allow this sector to grow. If you are too strict, we have to get some kind of trade-off. We have to have a benchmark. We have to set a line. If you are too strict, you will obstruct the development. And then, but if you are too loose, you will be dangerous. So it is a very difficult decision, but we are on track. Yeah. So we start from the low risk one, and then we communicate closely, and then we take others like comments and feedbacks, and then we actually a lot of the room. Actually, when we do our law, we have leave a lot of room for future development. We didn't put a lot of things like in the law. Rather, we leave it in the guidelines if we can. If we can, of course, we some very important principles we put it in the law. But of course, when we make the law, we know that because we're in the initial stage, we leave a lot of room for the future. So we make it more flexible. And then if anything happens, we always have our guidelines. We always have our tool to supervise the industry. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wants to add with regards to the issue of a risk of a bottleneck situation with regards to what's coming up next? Anyone? And in terms
I was
of
just,
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Ben. I think that DSAL, I've spoken to them before about this
Labor
issue.
Affairs Bureau.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. About this
the Portuguese acronym sometimes can be confusing. Go ahead.
The Labor Department, and to say, okay, how many blue cards can I have? You know, this is not a restaurant, so I need to know, is it 2 to 1, 3 to 1? When no one knows. Their idea was, and this is to your credit as well, is that they will see the development of the industry and say, okay, you need X amount of people, but trying to find those people is hard. Trying to capture those talents to Macau is hard. My experience so far is that if you're coming to Macau from Hong Kong, like Gavin, it's not the A class that comes. You know, they all want JP Morgan, they all want and they all want Maybank. Not as a company, but as a professionals. So the people that you can grab are perhaps not the best guys. And that's the juggling that we have to do. Now, to solve your friend's issue, you probably need a police so that you're not raided, but it is an issue. I think labor is a big issue. I think in time, hopefully, we will get more ability to have a fast-track process. You know, rather than taking 3 months to approve someone, it can be faster and tailor-made to certain positions. Because, as I said, in the fund industry, or in my side of the fund industry, the jobs are quite specific themselves and related to the funds themselves that we can issue. So it's a good question because I don't think it's easily solved because we are competing with talent. I mean, Singapore is, as Gavin was saying, Hong Kong, Macau. I've spoken to many CEOs in Macau who say the talent scheme is scary. You know, they're heading firms in Macau and banks, and then they ask them, "Do you have proof of English?" And we're like, "What do you mean? The guy is running a bank." It's a problem. So hopefully, you know, it's through cooperation with the regulatory body, and MCM knows about these problems as well.
Yeah, you please your 2 cents on this.
I'll just place 2 cents. I think like Ben's question was on one side is like the market readiness, if the market is ready, and then on the other side is on investor education. It's like if you are coming to Macau, and then how do you solve legal problems? For instance, like the Hong Kong principal coming to Macau and opening the office. On a humorous note, I would say that like if you are applying for a fund manager with AMCM, I think the times that it takes for you to get a license is sufficient for you to consult with a lawyer.
Okay, thank you.
Not enough time to get a blue card.
But I'll protect AMCM here. I think that the first fund was 1 year. Let's well be honest. It took 1 year, and a lot of tears as well. But in the end, we went through because it's the scaffolding that we need, and that's why a local company is required, so that we understand the other party as well and say, hey, they might not know it as well. I don't know it. You know, I'm not a lawyer as well. I have a good reference for a lawyer, but you know, to talk with MCM and to learn how to do this process is very important. And I don't think a foreign firm would do it. They will not have the patience as well. It's not the patience themselves that, as I said before, the uncertainty of capital is not knowing when it ends. And when we were doing in the application process, we might have said, okay, is it 1 month? Is it 3 months? By the 9 months, you're like, is it pregnant? Is this going to work? And uncertainty is the enemy of capital. Yes. But the regulator has been very strict on this. And in the private fund, they have said, I don't know if they will do, the 15 days, I think that's very important. That's a very important development because we do need this type of precisions. And in the public fund, as you said, it will take time, but it does need this type of scaffolding. So it's a requirement. And going back to Ben's question, Ben is a genius. It's good questions. About the financial infrastructure, I had a deep thought about this as well. When I started the fund, and I said, okay, well, who's a custodian? There's no license for custodians in Macau. And I approached BOC, and BOC said, okay, Sihala, yeah, let's try. And if it wasn't just because of, okay, let's try, we'd probably not be here today. You know, I'm not saying that the investment fund law is because of me. I hope 20% is, but it's also because, you know, there needs this type of first steps, and the infrastructure wasn't there. And is it there now? No. So it's going to take a while. But just unlocking the distributor was a very important step. Unlocking the fund management company was an important step. And another difficult step is the distributor. You know, they are the gatekeepers of capital. No, I can beg on my knees and say, please invest in my money market fund, you know, but it has to be the relationship manager, you know, and the KYCs and the AMLs of all this infrastructure and all the costs are very difficult. And you guys talk about tax on the fund side. And then I remember, I'm not going to make money for years. It's not the profit the issue. The issue is how can I carry back the losses forward? Not only in 3 years, which is the regulatory or the auditors. That's the difficulty, because it's money lost. I know this. So it's how do we build this industry, and the AUM size. This is the difficulty, because right now we have 500 million. When I had 200 million, AMCM called me and said, hey, enough, la. I said, enough.
Your money market fund, which was 200 million a year ago, now is 500.
Now it's 500 million. Thank you for the marketing.
No, no, I was just.
You know, it's good, but it's not sustainable. We need a bigger AUM. So that's the difficulty. And trying to reach, you know, for you to break even in this industry is good data for you guys as well, is that you probably need AUM of 2 billion. Okay, and 2 billion on 600,000 people, and let's say 600,000, 100,000 are babies, and perhaps, you know, another 400,000 don't believe me. There's a very small market, and that's the kind of infrastructure that is needed. But the gears have to be open. It has to be of a proof of concept, and the proof of concept was, well, the money market fund is possible, and therefore the gears are starting to shift. I approached BOC now. You probably know as well. There's other fund companies that say, "Oh, BOC can do it," and is that good? Well, hopefully. And the law, as you said, was very good in the sense that, you know, that you guys helped us develop more type of depositors. But there's important questions for lawyers here, which is how do we merge the civil law with the common law? This is a deep topic I had with Gavin. I mean, Gavin, I work with Gavin, yeah. And we were fighting with their legal and compliance. You know, I almost killed him as well. So it could have been criminal as well. It's the difficulty. It's very beautiful written in the law, but then when it comes to operations, if there's no precedent case like we both did, and try to understand from a Singapore sense, oh, what is a unit trust, or what is a unit fund? What's a contractual fund? Who is the main manager? Those are the type of difficulties that are needed, and there will never be a good or a bad, but it needs to start. And that's why, as Ben said, you know, is it dangerous? Yes, and that's why I hope maybe when you approve, not competitors of me, but, you know, but other fund companies, to understand what is their business model, what is their objective in Macau.
Thank you. Please, yes. I don't know, I will be tempted. Ricardo. Very crucial, yes.
Good evening, all. First of all, thank you for this nice debate today. Many questions have been raised here, and a lot of focus has been put on the law. As Nuno said, the law is literally the first step. I would even say the law is half a step of what we need to do. Ben raised an issue that is not only on labor side. MCM has right now a Herculean job of literally making everything else that is not in the law. And the law is the easiest part. Amy talked about the tax, which Proença referred very well about the tax neutrality. Please, Amy talked about studying legislation and jurisdictions closer to Macau. I would probably say either don't do it or study the legislation they had 10 years ago. When we study the Hong Kong tax bracket for funds right now, it's not something we will apply in Macau in the next 20 years. We don't need an exemption if you have 80 or 100 million AUM in a fund. Bernardo can probably describe how hard it is to get to 100 million in Macau we need to figure out, we don't have that many people and we don't have that many high income, high savings people in Macau that will give us 10, 100, 200, 300 public funds. So if you come and you say, like in Hong Kong, you need to have, I believe, if memory serves me right, close to 80 million to be able to be eligible for some tax brackets, then we are excluding a lot of funds in Macau of being tax efficient. And yes, we will inevitably be in competition at some grade with Hong Kong, Singapore, mainland China. We would be closer in terms of legislation or more beneficial if we go to Ireland, Luxembourg, which are small as us, bigger a little bit, all right? Comparatively small in terms of population and local income, and huge in terms of overseas income for fund investment. But then we come to a second issue, which is not only the talent for the funds. That's going to be terrible. As Ben said, we already have, if I'm not wrong, 2 more fund companies authorized in Macau this year. Rumor says there are 2 or 3 coming. Let's be quite honest. We don't have the personnel. We don't have the local people to staff them accordingly to what they should be. Either they're going to steal it from the banks, or they're going to steal it from the insurance, or we're going to have, not MCM, but with MCM input, having to open a completely different set of problems, which is, where are we going to bring them? Are we going to give them a blue card? Are we going to reduce the requirement for them to be eligible for Macau ID? All of this is something that the government needs to solve, but input most naturally will have to come from MCM, which raises a bigger issue. And this is my personal opinion, but I believe MCM is terribly understaffed. And if the government could allocate a few hundred people to MCM, it would be extremely beneficial for what is the Macau diversification policy. Bernardo said the public fund took 1 year, 1.5 years. For the public fund, for the money market fund, if we take 1.5 years to incorporate and authorize a company, 1.5 years to get a public fund, that's 3 years. It's 3 years that the company will have no income in Macau and a lot of expenses. I'm happy. I don't mind if, and I believe none of the lawyers present will mind if you do something like Singapore and give money for them to incorporate the cost. The lawyers will be very happy. We can charge them a little bit more, knowing that the government will pay something, but it will literally not save a lot of the money that they will expend inevitably in the long run. I don't know exactly what it would be the cost, or what is the cost that Bernardo and AMP has suffered in the last 2 years or 3 years, but I believe it would not be little. Between people, materials, and the full infrastructure that needs to be there before operation is not easy, which raises a very difficult question, but I'm not sure if anybody in the panel would like to at least potentiate a reply to it, which is, if we want to have these 2, 3 fund companies fully operational, let's say, during 2016, without the big problem that Ben identified, which is if something goes wrong, most likely nobody else will come. What are the, let's call it, guarantees that we need operationally for them to come? Do we need a guarantee that Labor Department will not knock on their door? Do we ask them, probably Rui Proença will be the best indicator, or Gavin, since they are working with overseas, like, what exactly is the immediate bandage we need to make sure that we can hit the ground running, like Amy has said, which is we need to give a big step and make it very certain to bring people, but what can we do to make sure we don't overstep and fall, and then nothing else comes back? I think this is a very difficult point from an operational point of view, from somebody who's outside. Like, if I come, will I get something? Will it actually happen? Or I'm going to lose, I think Gavin said 600,000, yes, Hong Kong dollars. More or less. Will I lose like 600,000 Hong Kong dollars, or Macau Patakas in incorporation, or lawyer fees and everything else? And then it becomes just a pipe dream. Okay. I think this is a difficult point to give to investors in the near future.
Thank you, Ricardo. And I would like to ask perhaps Gavin and Rui to jump in, as well as Nuno here.
I think when we're first working in Macau, right, of course, our own legal counsel, our compliance probably is like, what is this, right? What's the tax jurisdiction and everything? So we actually did the effort and went through AMCM, looked through a lot of ordinances, looked for similarities. And the key part from our perspective is client money rule, right? Protecting client assets, the segregation of client assets, all these things are just as stringent, as similar. That's why we wanted to work with the Macau jurisdiction. So I think from that perspective, that those ruling is there to, at the end of the day, it's all about protecting investors and investors, especially on the retail fund side, right? That's why, like Bernardo said, using a money market fund as a public fund to proof of concept this private fund market is already a huge step forward, right? In Hong Kong, in every single jurisdiction, starting a private fund is much easier than a public fund because of the end investors, right? Private funds, you can only sell it to qualified investors, professional investors. Money market fund, you can sell it to my grandmother, right? So, of course, the protection is much more stringent. So I think I at least from like first-hand perspective, in terms of the segregation, the protection of assets, it, at least from a very preliminary perspective, is just as good for the time being. So that's my that's why I'm here today, right? So, yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Kevin. Hui, would you like
Sure,
to?
I think, you pointed out a lot of challenges, and many of them, are real challenges. But I believe this is a brand new industry, and we got to start somewhere. And I don't think we can enter this discussion and enter this challenge defeated. I think we need to try to make it work, both the private sector and at the government level. And the government, I believe, it's hearing and it is consulting with the private sector, and it has done so before the law, and I think it will continue to do so. But at the end of the day, this will be a business. It has risk. There will be winners, there will be losers, and it may not work. But I think I think there's a big enough opportunity here to invest time and effort in both public and private sectors to try to make this happen. If we didn't do that 20 or 25 years ago, the Cotai Strip wouldn't be built. So I think I don't think the investment fund industry will have that scale. But if we dream a little bit bigger, I think we can try to do something. And I think going back to the first point I've made, the different avenues to achieve this. Before we start attracting foreign investors and competing with other jurisdictions, perhaps the unlocking of local capital that's already here, that's experience that probably will be government-led in a very initial stage, that could set the tone and set the confidence for what can come next. And so I think that would be the more prudent approach here, is to have it be government-driven, local-driven, and learn from that experience and build the ecosystem around it, and then think of higher, potential higher objectives.
No.
Not much to add. Of course, challenges are of course exist, and I think they have to be faced and dealt with. One of the ways to do it is phased out approach, like working step by step and with time settings in each phase. The other one, I think Amy already talked about this. It's the approach regarding going first for the less risky funds or private funds. It's of course more easy, as Kevin was saying. And one of the things that I would like to add to that is that one of the on this law, probably something that is maybe the less discussed on this law is probably the ones that are going to be more used. That is the alternative funds that just put there the private equity funds and risk capital funds. And I think one way to try to in terms of market, to develop the market in these areas, we have a lot of startups niches here in Macau. And one of the big challenges for startups is to get investors on these companies. And private equities and risk capital funds are the ones that usually invest on those startups. So it might be a way to begin developing also this kind of market. And step by step, we're trying to address the challenges and solve them. And I think government will also look at all those challenges and through AMCM having the feedback from the market on all these things that probably are going to happen, but can be solved. And it's not, in my opinion, it's not difficult to address and solve them because we are not going to invent anything. Everything is invented already. So if you look around us, one of the markets, we have Hong Kong just right near us, but if we look at Singapore, Singapore in terms of talent attraction, visas facility, it's really an example. And I think we should study have the study cases that we have around us and try to see how the others have solved the problems that we are facing and try to do the same thing because I think it works.
Well, we still have a few more minutes before we wrap up. I would say we're open to another 2 questions from the audience. I can see here distinguished representatives from the banking and insurance sector. I don't know if they want to join the conversation or any other comments or questions that you'd like to see addressed before we conclude our session. Anyone else would like to? So if not, I'll use the prerogative of being the chair and then bring one issue into the conversation that I alluded to, but I'd like Amy to talk a bit about that, which is there is the ongoing Greater Bay Area Wealth Management Connect scheme. So what could we expect in this respect? And also this also relates to mutual fund recognition.
Okay. Yes. With regard to maybe I first talk about a mutual fund recognition. Of course, is in our direction because it's important too. We will always strive to discuss with overseas or Chinese authorities to negotiate with them, and then it's in our direction to have this kind of mutual fund recognition with China or other international markets. But for the time being, of course, because we already have the Wealth Management Connect, and then within the scope also include local funds established in Macau. If any fund meets the eligibility to be in the Wealth Management Connect, then of course distributors can put them in there, and then the residents from the Greater Bay Area can directly purchase them already. And now the eligibility for the Wealth Management Connect is like if you're non-complex funds with risk rating of from low to medium, then you are already eligible. And then so it really is a very good thing because like Bernardo's fund is already eligible to be there. So this is already the thing that we can make use, and then the Greater Bay Area investors can already make use to it. But for the mutual fund, maybe it will take some more time. Yeah.
Thank you. Bernardo, would you like to add something on this?
We have been in the Southbound Connect program since the beginning of the year, I believe. And it's not easy. I don't think from a AUM perspective it's a significant number. It has to be worked. So unfortunately, the biggest bank in Macau is perhaps not the biggest in China. So that's also a big issue. So we have to find, other banks. try to see which a good bank, or we've discussed with various banks in Macau, but we can only have one as a distributor, so we cannot have multiple. So, in China, it's this ICBC, Gongfa, there's many banks that we're trying to understand. But they also need to understand like the safety of the product as well and the regulatory side of the product. So again, it's the compliance people that is the problematic people in the world. But it's
Got some
it's
friends from compliance here.
yeah, oh, they do. Oh. Later you can kill me. But it's a necessary step. But then again, it depends on what value are you providing. If you're providing the same product as the bond fund from Allianz or from PIMCO, okay, it's a hard sell. So we try to use the MOP as a gateway, but there requires more steps and more marketing promotion that we need to understand as well. What can be done with the distributor, and of course the infrastructure that Ben was talking about. How do we send money from China, and then how does the money go back? There's a lot of infrastructure problems because for example, our custodian or our TA is not has to accept the capital from that jurisdiction in China. So there's a lot of infrastructure that is not yet tested. So I think that in time, if the product is right, I think that's the big avenue. It's where the capital is, right? I mean, we are 600,000 here, but in Greater Bay we're supposedly 70 million. But it does require work because then you're competing with the sharks. You're competing with the big companies, e-funds, and all these great companies in China that you need to find a proposition. So I do understand that there's a feeling generally in Macau that this new fund law will create, the next big bank. But it's like saying that we should all go to Omaha because that's where the best investor in the world is, and that's where we should set up the company. Warren Buffett is Warren Buffett. He was there. I think attracting fund managers to Macau is important. Quality of life in Macau, school systems, the whole infrastructure that you tell a person, hey, here is good enough to be. But at the end of the day, it's a chance. It's about people that were born in Macau, or perhaps they want to come to or immigrate to Macau and want to set up the business. We can't force it, unfortunately. And for ANP, this has always been the same thing. It's okay, let's try and do something. And I just don't want to goad and say, but AMCM was lucky. I was lucky as well, that AMCM was willing to listen. But I don't want to be the negative guy, but it's going to be hard. I think Harper is here. Harper is the other company. So in investments, there's usually two markets. There's the primary market investments and secondary market. AMP specializes I hope I specialize, I guess, that specialize in secondary market. Harper is in the primary market. There is a division of the pie in Macau, but it's the same with the banking system. How many banks can Macau have? That's a question for you as well. Because the pie is so big. There is certain elements there that is we all just going to eat up each other, and we're just not going to compete. As Ricardo was saying, it's the labor problem. It's it's the infrastructure and attracting bad actors. It will happen. So it's time.
Thank you. Calvin, can we Macau punch above our weight in the Greater Bay Area game?
Well, I think so. Well, just to give some numbers to the audience, is that like we have been mentioning like Cayman. It's a big place for funds to be, but guess how many people are living there? 2 years ago when I was looking at it on Wikipedia, I think it was like 60,000 people, and right now I just look at it, it's like 87,000.
Okay.
So the difference is like 10 times from between like for Macau and Cayman. So if you believe in like talents, I think we have more people. And I believe that like we have the intelligent. Well, I suppose that everyone has the same intelligence, but of course. But I'm saying that like I think like we have a bigger base. So I believe that like one day we can surpass them. But what is lacking here? I think is like imagination and creativities. I would say that like from the experience of Bernardo, I was like in the beginning of the talk, I was telling him that like, well, actually his story and then his fun is very creative. And from the perspective of like from a Macau, like from a local Macau people or resident, I would say that like using Patakis, having a better like return than a short-term deposit in a bank, and then and also like applying Macau law, putting that to the test of the Macau court with the competent jurisdiction in Macau. I think the whole story is just saying that it's just proving that like, well, Macau financial system and Macau judiciary system and Macau law is okay. We can do it. We can have our own fund. But what is needed is more than that. That is just a proof, like the proof of concept for the basis. But now, that's the competitive part. It's the creativity. What more can we offer to the globe, or to the international investor scene? And can Macau be a bigger player in GBA? Well, I would say if you don't believe in yourself, no one will. So everyone sitting here, you need to believe in that. and then like in going field and like going forward, I would say that like still Macau needs to come up with something original here if we want to attract people coming here. Because like if we are selling the same things that people are selling out there, there's no reason for them to come here. It's like egg tart. It's like egg tart. It's like, well, yes, we can distribute egg tart through KFC. As from China, we see that from KFC. But still, people would come to Macau for egg tart because they know that's real and that's authentic from Macau. And then why I use the analogy is because like Bernardo mentioned about like for instance like currency for the wealth management wealth connect scheme. That's also a compliance problem. It's like yeah, that's true because Patakas is very special, but can we make something more special about that for investors? Because otherwise, we would be like we would be like making a decision of if there's the same product, are we buying it in Macau or do we buy it in Hong Kong or China? I don't know.
That's a key question. Yeah, I could sum it up as yes, we can in terms of a proposition, and perhaps more than a tax haven, perhaps we're looking at something potentially or hopefully as an appropriate diversification haven. I don't know, maybe. Thank you. We should move forward with the concluding remarks. In a nutshell, Gavin, main takeaways, key message to conclude our session.
I mean, we've spoken a lot. I think key message at the end is investor confidence, right? It only goes as far as how well the regulation and jurisdiction works before everything. And based on everything that's been happening so far, every single step has been correct, I believe. Yeah. So I'm very confident that this will go a long way. Yeah.
Thank you, and we look forward then to welcoming you back again in a second round of taking the pulse, as a midterm assessment of the new law and the market. Rui.
Thank you, José Carlos. I think we've all rounded up a lot of challenges here in this round of questions. We all know them. I do believe we can overcome them, and I think it's a matter of us defining what's the measure of success, right? Are we going to be the Cayman Island of the future and that level of volume of funds? Or we're looking at establishing, an infrastructure that would promote economic diversification in a healthy manner, and focusing on developing Macau and unlocking that capital. Could be government, could be casinos. We haven't talked about that, but they're sitting on, I was going to say a big pile of money, but they're sitting on a big pile of capital commitments already to the government. Can we unlock those and put those to better use? Can this be a key to do that? I think it can. So I think there's opportunity here. The future will tell, but I'm confident that we can make it happen.
No.
Well, I think we discussed already everything here. Not everything, but the most important parts have been addressed. And one of the things that I would like to finish by saying is that implementing this new law is not a sprint; is a marathon. So I think we should all prepare for that. It's on a long distance. It's going to take many steps, some drawbacks, but I'm optimistic about this. So I think we have a good framework. I think now we have to work within it and try to each one of us do its part to make it a success.
To work with the framework and make it work, right?
Exactly.
Calvin.
My last remark.
Yeah.
If it allows me to make my last remark.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, my last remark would be like investment fund is a legal tool. And what we had in Macau, what we had from since 2022, we also had another legal tool, it's trust. And then what I see is that like now Macau has like from the past couple years, Macau has revamped the financial regulations legislation like with a lot of effort. And I think that like now we have those tools set and ready. It's the time to let's make something great about it. That's all.
Bernardo, make Macau's financial sector great. I wouldn't say again, but great.
He wasn't there.
I don't know, but there's always something. We always come from somewhere.
I really have nothing to say, I guess. Well, I do hope that this law really ignites something. I hope that the partnership with AMCM can continue so that we both learn how to tackle society's problems. Trying also, of course, as a secondary effect, the diversification of the economy. Hopefully ANP, and as you know, ANP has always done its best, not only with the regulator, but to the government as well, in the benefit of trying to see if we can move forward on the next 25 years of Macau. It's very important. Another commitment is our MOP. I hope people will start. Since I'm here as well, I might promote my fund. It's a tool, but it's also a voice in the market that we have. 2,000 today unit holders. It's important that we invest in our own currency. I think that's a very important path forward. But in the end, it all depends on the conditions of the market, the ability of us to build these structures, not only the MCM, but the regulator. And I hope MCM also protects us from bad actors that will come, hopefully not many. And you check their business model very carefully. But, the future looks bright. And I think the foundations are set. I think the government has done most of what it can do. And it's up to chance.
Thank you. The last word for
Yes.
Amy, please.
Okay. Yes. Actually, investment fund is just one of the bold steps that the government has taken. Actually, we AMCM has taken several bold steps too. As Calvin has just mentioned, we have revamped the Financial System Act for the whole financial sector. And we also stepped into the bond market several years ago. And now we come to wealth management investment funds. All done is to, we want to make the financial sector more resilient and then not so concentrated in traditional business, because diversification is good, because if you face external shocks, you have more skills, you have more business, you have you will not just rely on just one single income source or just that one type of operation. So it is our decision, our direction to make the financial sector more resilient. That's why we want to diversify them. And then what we can do, the government, we lay the foundation, we lay the infrastructure. So we do the law, that is very important. And then we also we have a view that for investment funds, we not only develop this investment fund area, but also it can also help some peripheral supporting services grow, like the legal service, because before they may not have they may not be familiar with that, but now you can have more legal service, studying how trusts work, how investment funds work, how you can make investment funds, and besides legal, we also need more accountants. So besides this investment fund area, we also have a view to help other supporting services grow. So we do what we can do as a government, and of course there are challenges because this initial development stage, I think it is the same for every jurisdiction. So, but we try our best to solve the challenge, and step by step, I think we can make it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Amy. With this, we conclude our session. Thank you very much for joining us, distinguished panel speakers. Amy Ho, Bernardo Alves, Calvin True, Nuno Mata, Rui Proença, Gavin Koch. Our great honor and pleasure for having you, and thank you for joining us, for staying, and for your contribution, and to all those of you watching us on Facebook Live. Thank you very much for joining us. You can read a summary of today's session in tomorrow's daily newsletter of M&A Macau Business, and an expanded coverage in the upcoming edition of our magazines, Macau Business in English and Business Intelligence in Chinese. As always, we also thank you very much, Rui Cunha Foundation, the Securities and Funds Industry Association for this support, and all of you. And we'll be back soon. Thank you very much. Thank you.